You know that rush you get from sexual pleasure? It can be intense, quite intense, but in reality, it's like a temporary high, an illusion of happiness. It's like when you're super hyped about something, but once it's over, it's not the fulfilling, lasting joy you were hoping for. When you are sexually stimulated, you're all in, thinking that satisfying the urge will be the best thing ever. But eventually, you realize that it was just an illusion. That's the thing about chasing sexual pleasure. It might feel incredible in the moment, but it often leaves us feeling empty afterward. Most of you have already experienced this feeling of emptiness. I have spoken many times on this channel about how orgasm and ejaculation can bring about unwanted physical, mental, and spiritual effects in men. It's precisely why men choose the path of semen retention, to facilitate healing for both the body and the mind. For today's episode, I'll be trying to deconstruct desires that lead us to destructive habits and shed light on the psychological underpinnings behind them. Desires, they're intriguing, aren't they? They have this uncanny ability to steer our thoughts and actions, often without us fully understanding why. See, desires aren't just whims, they're deeply rooted in our psyche. Sometimes, desires for physical release can be an escape, a way to cope with stress, anxiety, or even deeper emotional issues. The desire and the thrill of sexual pleasure, it's like a quick fix, a burst of excitement. Ask someone who has slept around with many partners if they've found lasting happiness after these moments of intense pleasure. Ask someone who masturbates every day if these 5 seconds of pleasure are worth it. Ask someone who watched pornography if the high lasts for the whole day. They'll all likely tell you that the excitement doesn't stick around for long. Pornography. Those images, videos, and scenes that flood our screens, capturing our attention and stirring desires, are just empty pixels. It's a digital portrayal, a simulation designed to stimulate desires and captivate attention. And as you all know, it comes at a great cost. So, instead of letting these impulses drive you, it's about understanding that true, long-lasting happiness usually doesn't come from these quick bursts of pleasure. It's about seeking something deeper within yourself, beyond just those fleeting desires. An individual driven by intense passion can experience a sort of intellectual blindness. Despite possessing a sharp intellect, this person becomes unable to discern clearly when consumed by sexual excitement. At that moment, their usual intellectual prowess seems futile. For those of you on the path of semen retention, you know the truth. You already know everything that I am talking about, yet you still relapse. I'm not judging you. We all struggle. What I am telling you right now, you already know. It's just a reminder. I just want you to think about it today, and I hope that it helps you to keep going. In our basic elements, there's no concept of sex. It's our mind residing within this body, made up of these elements, that holds the desires. Think of it like having thoughts or imaginations in your mind. When these thoughts center around the craving for pleasure, that's what we call the desire for sex. If you can conquer your mind, full of these desires, you conquer lust and everything connected to it. It's like shutting down that craving. Once you're able to do that, there's no room for lust anymore. Controlling your thoughts and your mind acts as a potent remedy. It functions as a method to alleviate this blindness caused by overwhelming desires. Our bodies, they're made up of 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. There's no sex element in there. So how did this whole idea of sex come to be? It's more like a trick our minds play on us. It's this illusion, this idea that gets planted in our heads. Of course, I'm only talking about the idea of having sex for pleasure, for fun, and for entertainment. The entire spiritual journey of semen retention is aimed at breaking free from this association between sex and pleasure. When you focus on not seeking pleasure all the time in your life, that's when true liberation comes. A truly enlightened person sees the world as a manifestation of something higher. He sees everything as a part of a bigger picture. But for someone driven by passion, it's like they see the world solely through the lens of desires. When passion takes the driver's seat, it clouds our judgment, messes with our reasoning, and leaves us feeling powerless. Now, this can be our passion for sex, food, substances, you name it. The process is the same. Chasing after pleasure is like getting too close to a hot flame. You might get burned. Picture desires as this maze. You start off thinking you're pursuing something small, harmless. You open one door, and it leads to another, and another, like an endless chain. The more you feed these desires, the more space they occupy in your mind. Addiction is like a hunger that's never satisfied. It starts with a desire, a craving for something that brings temporary pleasure or relief. But here's the catch. The more you feed that desire, the hungrier it gets. It's a bottomless pit that can never be filled. You might find yourself in a constant cycle, always seeking that next hit, that next fulfillment. The thing about desires and addiction is that they're insatiable. You think you'll reach a point of enough, but it's elusive. Each fulfillment only fuels the desire for more. It's like chasing after a mirage in the desert. No matter how much you pursue it, satisfaction remains out of reach. That constant yearning, that craving for more, can consume your thoughts and actions, leading to a cycle of dependency. At its core, desire is a natural aspect of being human. It's that longing or craving for something that brings pleasure or relief. When we fulfill a desire, our brain releases chemicals like dopamine associated with pleasure and reward. This reinforces the behavior, making us feel good and encouraging us to seek that same pleasure again. When we repeatedly satisfy the same desire, especially if it's tied to a strong emotional response, our brain adapts. It craves that dopamine hit more intensely, seeking higher levels of stimulation to achieve the same satisfaction. This leads to a tolerance buildup, where we need more of that stimulus to feel the same level of pleasure as before. This is why addiction to pornography slowly leads you to watching more intense, hardcore, and disgusting content. Essentially, desires can create addiction by rewiring our brain's reward system, making us seek out the source of pleasure compulsively. The pursuit becomes more about chasing that initial high than about genuine fulfillment. A person, after having experienced life's challenges and suffering due to desires, yearns for liberation. He has witnessed the struggles and the pain and now wants liberation from it all. On the flip side, someone consumed by passion believes that satisfying their desires holds the key to solving life's puzzles. They're seeking something eternal through these desires. The passionate individual is looking for eternal satisfaction through external means, while the enlightened one seeks fulfillment by diving deep within themselves. It's like a tale of two perspectives, one seeking the everlasting in the outside world, while the other discovers it within their own being. Now for the second part of this video, I'd like to speak on a specific type of desire, the desire for women. On the path of semen retention, you must stop being obsessed with women. Take them off your mind. The pursuit of women, seeking their attention, and craving that social validation. Look, I get it. We've all been there, thinking that the more women we attract, the better we'll feel about ourselves. But let me share a little insight. It's a path that often leads to emptiness. I know it might offer a temporary ego boost or a sense of validation, but deep down, it's like filling a hole with something that just doesn't fit. You see, your worth isn't measured by how many women you attract or how much approval you receive. Instead of focusing on chasing after women or seeking their approval, focus on becoming the best version of yourself. Invest in personal growth, cultivate your passions, and build a life that genuinely fulfills you. I'm not saying to avoid women, just don't go chasing after every woman you see. Stop being impressed by women, stop putting them on a pedestal, focus on yourself. When you're confident in who you are and what you bring to the table, seeking validation becomes secondary. Also, stop being obsessed and impressed with beauty. Beauty, though captivating, is just one aspect of a person. It's like admiring a beautiful book cover without reading the pages inside. Beauty isn't something set in stone. It's more like a mental creation, a product of our imagination. It's not that a woman, sugar, or food inherently possess beauty, sweetness, or deliciousness. It's our minds that make them so. Our thoughts create this whole world of beauty and ugliness. But truth be told, it's all subjective. What's beautiful to one might not be the same for another. Beauty, ugliness, they're relative, all a creation of our minds. Think of it this way. What we consider beautiful is often shaped by cultural ideas, the symmetry of appearance, good manners, a graceful demeanor. But in reality, these are mental projections, not concrete truths. The idea of beauty isn't something everyone shares universally. For instance, you can find a person from the other side of the world who might not relate to your beauty standards. True beauty actually resides within yourself. It's a state of mind, not just about how things look. Sometimes, in love, A person might see beauty in someone who might not fit society's standards. It's like when Shakespeare wrote about Cupid being blind. It's that feeling of seeing beauty in someone's features, despite what others might perceive. Our impure thoughts, our messed up ways of thinking, they've led us astray. But hey, it's never too late to wake up. Recognize the mistake, open those eyes, and start seeing beyond the illusions. That's where the real beauty lies, within yourself, beyond the surface. Having a partner who's attractive can feel wonderful. When they're youthful, joyful, all dressed up and living their best life, it's captivating, isn't it? Those moments when they're singing, dancing, or showcasing their talents, they truly shine. But when things get complicated, that allure you saw in them might fade. It's not that they physically change, but suddenly, that charm isn't as visible anymore. Ever witnessed someone losing their cool over unmet desires? It's like their character and behavior overshadow the physical beauty. A person's inner traits, how they handle situations, how they treat others can sometimes cloud the beauty you once admired. It's like their character or attitude has the power to dull the shine you once saw in them. Nature gives this special allure to people, that charm and elegance meant to catch attention. But physical beauty? It's just on the surface. It's like a fleeting thing. We will all age, and our bodies deteriorate with time. Our physical beauty will fade, but our interior beauty will remain forever. Take a moment to contemplate the essence of those who ignite desire within you. Behind what appears attractive lies a composition of bones, flesh, and bodily secretions like blood, urine, and other elements that might seem less appealing. Underneath that glowing skin, there's just raw flesh. Behind the cheerful demeanor can hide moments of irritation and anger. Beyond those seemingly rosy lips could lurk potential health issues. And behind the kindness and sweet words might be the capacity for harshness and hurtful speech. Do not let the illusions fool you. The beauty we obsess over is temporary, artificial, and bound to fade. Do not allow the illusions to dominate your thoughts and decisions. Do not trade away your capacity for power for something as fleeting as this. Reflect on the purpose of your intellect, your ability to reason, and your power of discernment. Were these gifts bestowed upon you solely for pursuing transient and insignificant pursuits?